everyone, and welcome to the DM Disruption. I'm the host, Dawn Brolin. I'm a certified public accountant, certified fraud examiner, and the author of The Designated Motivator. We're here to help motivate you to take your practice to the next level. Have you considered outsourcing your client's payroll? Well, I did, and I went with ADP. The resources they provide, along with their partner program, make them the premier outsourcing payroll solution. We as practitioners already deal with a ton of compliance. Keeping up with payroll isn't a value-added solution that I should be focused on. If you've considered outsourcing before, reconsider it today. Choose ADP to be part of your starting lineup. Well, hello everybody, and welcome again to the DM Disruption. I'm super excited to have a great friend of mine who works with ADP, but really more than anything, she's just a great person and somebody who I think is a motivator in our industry when it comes to working with professionals like myself. And she's done so much for us. So Heather, introduce yourself. Let's talk about, what's your role at ADP and what you're kind of seeing out there in the industry. And, we're going to rock some worlds here today.
All right, here we go. So I run Point on the design and execution from a sales operation perspective, and I have the fun job of all of the energy that I use up is spent towards the accountant community. So how it is that we help accountants better serve their clients. And it's been a cool ride for me because I've been here since literally even before I graduated college. I was an intern at ADP, and I've spanned more than 2 decades really trying to go after this market and just give like the best support we can to the accountant community.
Well, it sounds like you started when you were 10.
Yes.
Since you've been working for 2 decades in this area, in this space. But payroll is payroll, people think, but I think it's just so much more than that. I think that we as the trusted advisor, making sure that we're recommending the right payroll solution for our clients is critical. And with the landscape of accounting and payroll and labor and, the last year and a half of the pandemic, the landscape has totally changed. And I think that, I found, at least for myself in my industry, as far as, how payroll works, is that we need a partner in payroll. Doing your own payroll these days is almost virtually impossible because of the filing requirements and the different credits that you can have. And so what are you seeing as far as pain points in the industry with practitioners like myself who are like trying to maneuver things and there's just so much and so overwhelming? What are you seeing?
I think it starts with just the overall complexity, like you mentioned, the landscape from a compliance perspective has skyrocketed. And of course, there's no good time to make changes. But unfortunately, when the world started to unfold at a feverish pace, it was a heart attack season, right? So the accountants, man, they pivoted on a dime and they went from cranking out tax returns to how do I help? Right? Like, how can I be that calming effect that works with my clients to let them know that it's going to be okay, right? And how could I sift through some of that complexity and make it simple so that their clients truly understood, am I in a position that I need to close my doors? Am I going to reimagine how it is that I work with my customer, my clients today? And even for the firms themselves. So that complexity was probably something that accountants hadn't seen throughout their entire career. And hopefully, we don't see anything like that going forward. But just the pace and the area of expertise that was sought out from the accountants has been admirable. It's been truly, truly admirable.
Yeah, and I see certainly, what ADP has done because of the landscape and the way things have changed to allow us to obtain information that maybe historically we weren't really looking for or weren't really relying upon. And having that ability to, the resources with Accountant Connect, if we were even just to start there. And again, this is what I want to deliver in this episode of this podcast is how can we help my fellow practitioners and people to make the right decision when it comes to payroll, because payroll is payroll, like I said before. But with the landscape now and the reporting requirements and the compliance requirements are so overwhelming that, like, for myself, I can add value by providing a great service through ADP, but also the resources of I always say there's the notices are coming no matter who's preparing payroll. It's irrelevant. The IRS, the states are so far behind right now. We're seeing notices coming in, but being able to, let's just take, for instance, the pain point of notices, being able to upload those as service requests through Accountant Connect and follow the results of that notice by the staff at ADP, by the representatives who are solving those problems. So if we think about it, yes, the accounting industry, Heather, like you were saying, has just been like, whoa, what has happened? And so many practitioners are like, do I want to keep doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And so one of my biggest recommendations is, hey, take a look at what you are providing for services today that maybe you don't want to be providing tomorrow. And so are you being tied down by that compliance work through payroll? And if so, Accountant Connect is a great, is an absolutely phenomenal solution for professionals. So those types of pain points are what you guys are looking to solve for. The running of payroll is what it is, but it's the other resources like managing notices or having the access to business valuation tools, which you guys have just launched here recently, right? So that's what you guys are looking to do at the end of the day.
Dawn, it starts with the data, right? Like, the data is out there, but for the accounting professionals, it's how they make sense of the data and how they make it meaningful to the client. So yeah, like, data is our middle name at ADP, but I think what we have been trying to do is serve up that data in a fashion that's actionable. So we were talking a little earlier about one of the issues out there with business owners today is, how do I get really great people? Like, how do I get them in the door? And when I get them, how do I keep them, right? So what we're trying to do is say, okay, like, let's start with the clients, the mutual clients that we share. And when they hire people or when they terminate people, like, let's put that data front and center so that as an accountant, you can see that and have conversations with your clients that if they're struggling to get talent, what are some of the tools and resources that could be tapped into? Like, as an example, analyzing compensation. Like, we provide and look at 30 million records spanning 90,000 organizations. And if I'm an accountant, I could look at a map of the country and say, okay, I have this restaurant, I'm here in Cape May, New Jersey on vacation with my family right now. And the restaurants are struggling. And I walk in and there's tables open, but they won't seat us. And it's a half-hour wait because they don't have the staff, right? So I could go into that map of the country. I could pick New Jersey. I could pick down to a certain county level and say, okay, what does good compensation look like in the restaurant industry for a cook, for a manager, for a server, and give that guidance. I mean, compensation is not the end all be all, and that's a whole nother conversation when you look at why employees are attracted to the organizations that they work for, but it's a given. Right, you got to pay your people well if you want to be competitive in the market and you want to keep that talent. So I think it's about, how do you make the data meaningful, and then what are those tools and resources that will allow you to expedite the conversations and help dream build and forward think with clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, and we're talking kind of about pain points that are both from an accounting professional's perspective, but the clients, of course, most importantly, that's who we're all serving, ADP, and all the accounting practitioners. But you're right. And I think I just actually was on a call for a couple hours this morning with a great client from Pittsburgh. And we're sitting there trying to figure out, she can't get staff. She can't get people. She's got an 8,000 square foot restaurant. She's probably utilizing 2,000 square feet because she doesn't have the people.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't have people to do the serving and the cooking and all the rest of it. And that's a really big problem across the country right now, as everyone very well knows. This is not a secret. There are various opinions on, how can we make this change? What do we do? Oh, pay them more. Okay, well, that's great. You're going to pay more for your meal. Like, at the end of the day, the restaurants have already suffered enough. You want them to suffer more by paying more. I get that. We do see, Heather, which I think is great, we do see the people going out to these restaurants tipping more than they've ever tipped before, which I think is, if you want to look at the citizens of the United States, I can say for myself, for somebody as a client, it's a restaurant, thank you, right? Thank you for understanding that these servers, we've got to supplement the servers' pay because the restaurants just are just can't afford to pay $14, $15 an hour plus tips. And so we're definitely seeing that. So ADP, one of the things as far as ADP's motivation to the accounting professional is, listen, we're here. We provide a great payroll service, cool, right? Payroll service, payroll service. But what you guys are doing for the pain points in the accounting industry is, as you're handling the design and the delivery of how we interact with ADP, is that you're providing us with that benchmarking, right? So that's, making sure that we have realistic salaries and things like that, reasonable salary calculations that S corporations have to perform. You got to make sure you're paying yourself a decent amount, an amount that the IRS would accept to allow you to continue being an S corp. And I think one of the really great tools that just came on board was the ability for us to go ahead and get our clients started with payroll without needing to use our direct rep, who, believe me, I got the best in the country. I've got Paige. So sorry to everybody else, but I do have the best rep. And so I love that tool because we as the practitioner want to be able to be proactive. And I think that that's another piece that I'm sure that you found that we were all asking for. Hey, let us get this started, yet you're still going to kind of monitor at the end, the end game, right?
Well, I think it's about designing the way that you want to interact with the partner, right? And having that flexibility that suits your needs in the moment, right? Like you mentioned Paige, your dedicated associate, like she's amazing. And very often you probably want to interact with Paige, but there are other times when you're like, hey, you know what? This is probably easy enough that I could figure it out on my own and I could get the proper authorization and get the client up and running. So you have that flexibility to really design your interaction that's in your best interest and the client's best interest. And I think innovation and technology has allowed us to accelerate the pace in which we offer that flexibility, right? Like that wasn't always the case. I mean, when I was running around selling payroll and working with accountants, if you opened my trunk, it was like massive amount of files and getting everything ready and organized. And now just the way of the world and just technology, it allows us to work differently.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, as I go through as a practitioner, and I want to, we're going to take a sideways move here in a second, because I want to hear a couple things about Heather Sperduto personally and how what is Heather's big motivation to do? Everybody wants to service their clients. We're all people pleasers. We're going to get to that in a second. But I definitely find that one of the most important things is integration. Okay. And having a payroll solution that can integrate with other applications. And so if you go to dawnbrolin.com, you'll see our starting lineup, and you'll see there's a map of exactly how our technologies all integrate with each other. And I think that that's something that we, again, in the accounting profession, need to really analyze, because having that integration removes the manual and journal entry. So if you're listening to this and you're still manually entering journal entries for payroll, stop, go to ADP, start moving your clients over there for the automatic sync and integration between not just QBO or Xero or the online solutions, which are great, but it still also has IIF transactions for those that are in QuickBooks Enterprise or QuickBooks Pro and Premier or a desktop solution. So that integration is so important. And so, I think I just want to make that point, because I think sometimes we miss the end game. The end game is to have good payroll, compliance, everything under compliance, but then having that ability to get the reporting out of ADP and into the accounting software seamlessly without manual entry. And my restaurant's a great example. We have it all mapped where the back of the house versus front of the house versus managers versus officers. And we have all of that payroll mapping in. So we do weekly budgets with them. And so we are able to say, okay, what happened with labor? And of course, it's typically the front of the house and back of the house that ends up being either up or down, depending on what happened. And so we can analyze it so much better. So I just want to make sure that people are listening. If you are doing anything with payroll manually, shame on you. Stop it. Stop it right now and do something different and get that going now, so that next tax season, things are running seamlessly and smoothly. You've got to make the transition. It's going to take some time. You'll have a dedicated rep. It'll be awesome. But I want to shift over to the Heather Sperduto of the world. And I want to know I want to get under your hood of your car, which is the Heather Sperduto kick butt mobile vehicle. And I want you to tell me a little bit about, like, what has motivated you to be, you're amazing at ADP. You have a reach. I don't know if you sleep ever, but what is your motivation just in your life in general? Tell me about you.
Like, listen, I don't think you could stay with the same company as long as I have if you weren't motivated on a regular basis. And for me, I always say, if I wasn't inspired and continuing to learn every day, like I would have jumped ship a long time ago, right?
Right.
But if so, I have that professionally within the culture and embracing like our newest associates. So that would be like on the professional side. But on the personal side, my dad is a CPA, right? Like he's an accountant. And one of my proudest moments in my life was we went to the New Jersey CPA Society and he was given an award as the Educator of the Year. And he's a chairman of the accounting department for years at a college here in New Jersey. He teaches a review class for the CPA exam. I swear all the tax returns he does are complimentary to friends and family, right? Um, but he gets this award and he says, imagine Giant Stadium and every single seat filled. That's how many students I've taught in my career. And for me, I've always like just admired his passion to make people better. And it's just ironic that I happen to do the same thing. I might not necessarily be the CPA, but I've embraced the CPA, accountant channel, bookkeeper lane at ADP. So there's some synergy and consistency there. So that's really been a motivating factor. And then just my family in general. Like I have two brothers, they were collegiate athletes. My older brother took that passion and he was a big track runner and now he owns running stores. But his passion is coaching. So he coaches high school, and every year his kids go to the state finals and championships, and he sends a few of them to Ivy League. But then on my younger brother's side, he and his wife are professional triathletes. And that is their passion, and they travel and they compete in the Ironman. And my sister-in-law is so good. She's ranked one of the top 10 in the world right now at 40 years old. So when I see them on a Saturday morning, I'm getting ready to watch TV and put my feet up, and they're going for a run for like 3 hours. So that level of dedication and motivation, it kind of just surrounds my world. I happen to apply that energy to what I do in the corporate world, but I see how my family has done it in their respective outlets that complement their style and where their passions are.
Well, that's just amazing. And I feel like I should go running right now. I'm not going to, but I feel like I should. Right. And yes, and you can see, I do relate a lot of things, and not everybody's an athlete, and some don't even realize that they are athletes in whatever way they are. But definitely in athletics, that team philosophy, having the ability to, like, for you, it sounds like your family is a really great, big, wonderful team where you're all obviously supporting each other and things like that. I think, right now in the accounting profession, as we're, working on the book right now, the designated motivator for accounting professionals, looking at that ability for us to reach out and pick each other up is more critical now than ever. And I think that's part of why my relationship with ADP is so important to me, because I need their support. I need to know that when something comes up, I can reach out and go, hey, Paige, something's happening with this, and I don't know what to do about it. And what do you think? And it's like I have a teammate, and it's not, it's more than just a referral relationship. It's really something where without ADP support, I don't think I could do the things that I'm doing now, right? So whether I'm writing a book or I'm doing tax returns or I'm doing whatever, I've taken that. I mean, I would call it painful payroll. It just, 4 months of the year, I'm tied down. I've got to deal with all this regulation changes and the reporting, and with the PPP loans in and of themselves, and what ADP was able to do to support the practitioner was critical for me. So I want to make sure when I choose my solutions, and the people on my team, the players on my team, everybody has a positions. You've got to have a workflow management. You've got to have this and that. You've got to have a payroll solution that you can rely upon that takes that 4 months of compliance work out of your factor. I don't value add for me is not payroll is not a value add for me to get paid. But with Accountant Connect, and with the ability to have the accountant referral program where there are commissions being paid out, that supplements the pain that I have to, when if I get a notice from a client, I'm like, oh, I don't want to deal with this. And I'm like, oh, that's right. ADP pays me a portion of their fee to take that form, scan it, uploaded it to the service center and do a service request. Now it makes sense to me. And there's not a lot of other solutions that are providing that type of support. And I think that's, to me, one of the most important things. But I do love that story about your family and how they're, geez, that motivates me just hearing that.
Dawn, I would give you an observation too, because so much of what I do is I'm in and out of accounting firms, right, on a regular basis. Throughout the course of the day, I could meet with a firm in Chicago, California, Florida, I used to be on the road every single week, right? We would be at the shows and whatnot. But an observation is we are seeing more peer-to-peer recommendations. So like you talk about the team, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we have our sales and marketing efforts, but we are entering into relationships because Dawn is sharing her story with Jill, somebody in her network or down the road there locally in the community. And we're seeing more accountants like really joining forces to just have dialogue and understand what is best in class, what is everybody doing, whether it's through their state society or local organizations that they work with. And we're seeing people go all in. So, as an example, like oftentimes, not so much on the accounting software side, like a firm, if they're all in Xero or QuickBooks or whatever that looks like, when they gain a new client, they say, okay, this is the accounting package that we use at our firm, and here's what you're going to do. Traditionally, we hadn't really seen that on the payroll side. It was almost as if firms would leave it up to the client. Right. If they were using a software package and it was working, okay, if it's not broke, we're not going to fix it, right? Mm-hmm. But in recent, years, that next gen firm, they are going all in on their tech stack recommendations. And we're seeing firms that are moving like massive amounts of clients, right, over to an ADP for all the reasons that you said, right? They're embracing the award-winning Accountant Connect, the access to the report, but it's making them more productive. So when they master their accounting software and they master whatever's going to be their engine for payroll, right? Mm-hmm. It allows them to service the clients faster. And when we look in the dashboard, we keep doing this analysis that says, okay, let's talk about your book of business. We know that we share 23 mutual clients. What's going on in your world with the rest of them? And we're uncovering like, okay, well, I still have a handful of them that I do in-house. Is that really the best answer? Or I'm using a couple local companies, another national provider, but we're seeing more and more firms that are really taking the time to analyze their entire book of business and make decisions that are putting them in lanes with the best technology and service, right? Because you need both. You have the technology, but you need the people. On occasion, you got to ask a question. So you need the people that are going to have the answers for you to put you in that position to win.
Yeah, and that's definitely just, again, for food for thought for those that are listening is to those decisions have to be made. And we were historically like that. Oh, okay, you're on Gusto. Okay. Oh, you're on this. You're on Intuit. Okay. You're on this. Okay. And now it's just like you said, if you're going to be in QuickBooks, number one, if you're, let's say you're a desktop, you're going to be on a hosting solution. You're not going to have the QuickBooks file local. That's how we operate. That's how we work. There's no sense in sending data files back and forth. And so I think this is probably the biggest point of this whole episode, right? You as the practitioner should need to take control over your practice, what you offer, and how you guide your clients. And I liked what you said as far as, I can go into my client base and see who has 401k. Mm-hmm. Do people have workers' comp pay as you go? Or do I have a contractor on ADP payroll who's paying that $10,000 workers' comp payment up front? What are the things that I'm able to advise better? So when you have that, I will call it consolidation into one platform where you can see everything in one place, the analytics that you can come up with and the way that you can have different conversations with your clients that give that value that we're all talking about. Everyone's talking about giving value. Well, providing payroll is not giving value, people. Okay. Actually punching the numbers and issuing checks and doing all that stuff. That's not a value add. What's a value add is when you can analyze your clients and say, hey, I noticed you weren't on workers' comp pay as you go. What is it? Because I don't necessarily know what my clients do for workers' comp. That's not necessarily something I ask them all the time, but now I do. Now I'm like, are you one of those guys who pay up front and then you have your audit and then maybe you get some money back and maybe you don't? Like, now I'm giving value to that client to manage their cash flow in a way that they weren't doing before. And I think that that's the whole point of what this conversation has been on the motivation side of, listen, gain control of your clients and you're not going to lose people. that, you're the trusted advisor. They're going to believe in what you're saying. And I think that that's what the message that Heather and I are trying to give you is find a solution that's going to give you more than just payroll prep and tax filings, because that's just anybody can do that. But when you can bring in a whole new conversation of 401k and workers' comp and, hey, listen, you're, like you said, a restaurant in Pittsburgh, let's see what the average pay is. We're struggling hiring people. Okay, well then maybe we want to pay people more than all the other restaurants. Maybe we'll gain some people from that, whatever your analysis and your consultation with your client is. I think that's what we have. So Heather, why don't you wrap it up and give me your final thoughts on where, as far as your recommendations to the accounting industry and the thought process of really managing those clients well.
I would say, accountants probably already know this, but don't underestimate your value. You tell your clients to jump and they say how high. And, you have all truly earned that title of the most trusted advisor now so than ever before. So, I think everyone is truly looking to the CPAs, the accountants, and the bookkeepers. And I mentioned it earlier with just a level of admiration and respect, but I think it's that forward-thinking lens that has to be apparent, right? It's one thing that everybody gets situated here, but it's another thing to help businesses reimagine and take their business to the next level, right? Because there have businesses that have struggled and there have businesses that have thrived. And there's a market for those thriving businesses. And I think we all just need to think differently, right? About the services we offer, the product line. And that holds true not just for our clients, but for ourselves as well. Because if we're not thinking differently, then the firm down the road is probably going to think differently and offer something that maybe hadn't been brought to the table. And businesses are all in on trying to self-reflect and figure out where they go next. And the accountants are really the ones that should help them drive that scenario of where they take their business in the not so distant future.
Yeah. And that's a great final thought, because that's true. Like, the clients are going to shift. If you're not shifting, they're going to shift this way and you're going to be shifting that way, and you're going to be going in total opposite directions. And so we've got to be those forward thinkers. We've got to be in front and ahead of the curve and not just trying to catch up. And so now's the time to do that, because you never know what tomorrow's going to bring. So it's just time right now. And, that's what we're here to encourage you to do. Make some changes in your firm, make your work-life balance a lot better. And now's the time to do it. So Heather, thank you so much. Heather Sperduto with ADP, an amazing woman. If you ever see her at a conference, you got to get around her because she's got so much knowledge. It's so great. And now that we're going back in person a little bit more, that's wonderful too. But again, thank you, Heather, for joining me here on the DM Disruption. And thank everybody for listening. And we'll talk to all of you soon enough. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Feel free to visit dawnbrolin.com in order to motivate you to improve your practice. Wishing you all the best. Have a great day.